Welcome, everyone, to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You're listening to the new streaming network, home of Going Bold and Going Solo. And today we have a great show. It's called LinktoEXPERT Business Showcase. And we're going to be connecting the experts, which is us today. I am Cece Shatz. I'm one of the hosts here. I'm fondly called the Doyenne of Relationship Building. And I have my wonderful friend here with me, Joanne Weiland. Joanne, you are, you do so much. You're like the what is it? The Chief Connections Officer and the founder of the collaborative cloud community called LinktoEXPERT.com. And if you guys don't know about LinktoEXPERT.com, you've got to find out about it. And we'll get some more information with Joanne about that. But it is I'm on it. Listen, if I join something, you know that it's got to be good because I'm very fussy about what I do. And so welcome, Joanne, to the show. I love you, girl.
Oh, I love you too. And I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity to share with so many entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, event professionals, because I really do believe today we're going to talk about something that's actually one of the biggest challenges we all have. And maybe people don't always realize this, but getting in front of the right people consistently and following up with them, how do we do that? Because a lot of times we actually think we're so busy that we don't have time for that. And if you ever notice, the word business is busyness. And if you don't really watch it, I know myself especially, you can get so caught up in the busyness of the business that you really forget what is your real focus here. And I've been going to so many, I like you, Cece, I'm a continual learner. I love to learn new things. And I've been going to so many classes lately and online or whatever you want to call it, as well as all these workshops and meetings. And it really amazes me how we do get sidetracked in so many things. I actually have had over a dozen coaches in my life, and many of them would say to me, "Oh, Joe, you saw another shiny object, didn't you?" And I am not knocking all these new exciting things at all, but we have to be so careful that we don't spend so much time doing busy work that we're not really doing the business work. And not that it's all business, because I do believe we should have fun with it. So I came up with an idea several years back, and I've been presenting it on other people's podcasts and TV radio shows. So I thought, well, why don't we, Cece and I, do this today and share this, because it's a consistent challenge, but yet it's also, there's new ways that we can do things, because there's always new ways, and that is part of the shiny object. So I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. We just have to be able to distinguish which ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with today, the technology is there. And so we're constantly in this mode of shift, right? We're
Mhm.
constantly moving, grooving. Everything that we did before has changed. And so we're trying to move forward. And if we don't, start thinking about, I think automating, delegating, and then maybe, yeah, we have to eliminate some things that aren't working, right? Because we have to be ready for change and to adapt to the new things that are out there. So it's just, we're forever moving within business. And those that think that, once you start a business, it's going to be set in stone, it's just not the way it is anymore. It used to be, mom and pop could do that and go to work, come home, everything was great. But now in today's world, everything is constantly moving, changing, and we have to kind of stay up with it. And you are you just are fabulous with that, being able to be on the cutting edge of stuff, because your Link to Expert Business, LinktoEXPERT.com, is something that was been in place for many years, and it was really on the forefront of what's happening. And so I think that, and you're constantly adding to it, and and adjusting it, doing things like that, and which is definitely what we have to do. Yeah, I agree. Like we started going solo, going bold, and now we're bringing it all together. Both platforms, which are exciting platforms in themselves, we're bringing it together with the new streaming network, and we're adding even more to it, like everyday life TV. You know, we've got the Link to Expert TV, we've got inspirational TV. We have a lot of. We're gonna be rolling that one out. We've got a lot of things happening, and so yeah. So let's talk about this a little bit more in more depth. And I like these kind of shows because I think, and we hear it from our audience all the time, that they want to hear from us too. They love the interviews and all the wonderful individuals, experts that we bring on as guests, but they also want to hear some of the nuts and bolts that we have experienced in our lifetime so they don't have to experience them, right?
I agree. And I really do feel like sometimes we have to stop and go back to the basics. So
Yeah.
that's where I'd like to start today.
Okay.
I believe that we have to eliminate, we have to automate, and we have to delegate. And as we dig into those, I really would challenge you to our viewers and listeners, take time for the next week or two and write down everything you do. That might sound so crazy, but you will be so surprised of how many things you do. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but I beat myself up sometimes thinking, man, I didn't get anything done today. And sometimes I think we have to look at what we really are doing on a I mean, really, even it might sound crazy, on an hour by hour basis, maybe even a minute by minute, depending who you are and what you do. And even if you just scribble it on a piece of paper, it doesn't have to be anything beautiful. It doesn't have to be a spreadsheet, but if you can, that's fine too. However it works for you, but just consistently for at least 5 days, I would say, because Monday through Friday, we do different things on different days. For an example, we have our show on Wednesday together, Cece and I. But Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, we don't. So that this would only be on Wednesday's day. And I just really challenge you, because even if it seems like it's something so trivial that you can do in a couple minutes, but still, I challenge you to just write it down and keep it together. And then the next part of it, I would really recommend that you go through it and see what is on there. Evaluate it, think about it, because some of it really is so important, but some of it is such a waste of time, or something we can, like we're going to talk about soon, automate and delegate. But you would be surprised. Not There's another part of it before even the automating and the delegating. Go through it and see what is the busyness, the BS, actually. Okay. There's a lot of things sometimes I think we do without realizing it's no longer necessary. Like Cece was talking about, that we both have been doing business for a long time. Well, things shift and change. Maybe what you used to do, you don't need to do anymore. So I would first, when you're going through your list, see what you can eliminate. What can you get rid of that really no longer needs to be done? Or maybe you can, think of it that maybe you don't need to do it every day. Maybe you don't need to do it every hour. I'll just use an example with emails. I don't know about you guys, but I get hundreds of emails a day. And sometimes I get so frustrated because of the fact that I really, truly want to get back to people as soon as possible. But I also know that isn't very productive for me, because if I get stuck in email land, I also don't do a lot of the things that I really need to be doing. And I can spend hours there if I don't be careful. So consider, maybe, for example, instead of completely eliminating it, but do your best to look at them when you're looking at them. And if you can unsubscribe to some of them, maybe that you no longer need, or in my case, I get a lot of, like I would say, junk, spam, and even though you can have a spam folder and filter, and I do, but some of this spam stuff still goes into my regular email, and some of my good stuff goes into my spam. So, I mean, it's not an easy task to do, but I do think that would help a lot of us if we don't just get caught up in email. And maybe the other thing for me anyway, I do my best to only do it once or twice a day. Instead of throughout the day, quick check it. Oh my God, did somebody email me? Because of the fact then your mind is constantly flip-flopping back and forth. So what do you think about eliminating? What other things would you eliminate, Cece,
Yeah,
besides?
I agree with that. I mean, I started to do that. Like I check my email in the morning. I'll sometimes check it like around lunchtime, and then in the evening because I get so many. If not, I mean, one time I was gone, and especially here we had the hurricane, right? We were off.
Yes.
Hundreds of messages. So what I did is I also put a thing where I knew I wouldn't be able to answer, so I did it prior to the hurricane so that way people would know, and that eliminated a lot of problems that I had too. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is, why do we think we have to always reply to everything? you know I mean, I think that we do have to reply, but some things we don't have to. And so I think that we need to understand that our time is also important, and some of the stuff that we get is maybe not necessary to be able to respond to. For instance, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn and I love it, but I get hundreds of people trying to, of course, sell me their marketing, selling me their products, selling me their stuff. And I started out always saying, thank you, but no thank you, thank you, but no thank you. And then and then they want to talk more about it because they're trying to sell me. So then I realized, you know what? I don't have to respond to all of them, and so I really don't anymore. I kind of do a brief look over, and the ones that I want to respond to, I respond. The ones I don't. And then maybe that's poor business, and I apologize to anyone if I've offended them, but there's just so many hours in the day and I just can't do otherwise. And no disrespect, but that's just kind of the way it is. So it's eliminating, but it's also understanding and honoring yourself, honoring your own time, which we don't always do that. We don't always honor our time. So yeah, emailing is always a big thing. Messaging is always a huge thing in business. And although we love it, it can also be a curse. So yeah. So yeah.
Exactly. And it really, what you said about the, people reaching out to you, I feel like I'm going to be talking out of both sides of my mouth because a lot of times I'm doing that too. But when we really go back to what we talked about right in the beginning of this conversation, getting in front of the right people, I think a lot of times too, that if we keep that in mind, myself included, by doing like research, for an example, of
Mhm.
the people before you even contact them, and like and get to know them and to know what really you think would be a good reason for us to connect instead of just sending out tons of messages like that. So I really think that part of it is that as well. And when we eliminate some of the stuff that isn't quite that important and focus on more of the other stuff that is, I feel like things do fall into place because you're not as stressed by having to figure out how to do 16 things. I mean, I know myself, I am guilty of taking on more tasks than
Mhm.
I can handle. And then what do I get? I get frazzled. Then I can't do what I agreed to do. So I have to calm myself down. And like we said about the list, and just ask yourself, what do I want to do? What's most important? And with that list, you can even prioritize and then just finish one thing at a time. Because I think that is a really big one too. When I get myself in a tizzy of thinking I have to do all these things,
Mhm.
but they just overwhelm me. But then I think, well, what if I just finish one thing at a time? And I really, truly, I just had this happen to me yesterday. And once I just started focusing on one thing at a time and finishing them, before I knew it, it was done. Versus when you're trying to think like all craziness and how you're going to do all this, it just makes such a
Well,
difference.
that's kind of planning your day. And maybe this is elementary,
No,
but
go ahead.
I have this sheet that I have purchased, right? And
Okay.
so it's day to day, and it covers the most important things to do. And what I like about this is it only has 3 things. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I'll write down what I needed to get done, and then I think, oh God, they're all important. How am I going to get them done? Well, this makes me really think about the 3 most important things to do. Then it's like everything else that I need to do, right? And if I don't necessarily get it due. And then what can wait till tomorrow? So as I'm making my list, I can say, okay, this might be able to wait till tomorrow. And then certain things like and then I'll notes and things. But what I like about this one too is it says, don't forget to hydrate, breathe, get some fresh air, eat something great, be grateful, and make someone smile. So if
Oh,
don't forget to do the stuff that you really need to live for, because so
right.
often in business we forget to do those things. We forget to get up out of our chair, and our backs are killing us after a while. You know what I mean? So we don't get up and walk around. We need to drink water, so we don't do those things. So I found this and I love it. And I've been doing it. I do it faithfully pretty much every day. And it's got, Monday through whatever. And so yeah, so this is kind of my cheat sheet for exactly what you're saying. And if it doesn't get on here, then it's
Mhm.
not worth doing. It's like when I grew up and my kids were little, and I would say to them, if you've got something important at school, things like that need to be done, it's got to be on the calendar on the refrigerator. If it's not on that calendar, we're not doing it. So you have to, because if not, I was going 1,000 different directions to think about it when you have 5 kids, all the different places you're going to, all these kids stuff. So if you don't put your activity on that list, on that calendar, guess what? You're not going to that party because mom can't drive you because she's taking, the other kid to another place. So anyhow, so I think that's kind of what I do, and that helps. And eliminating is always hard for us to do, and so let's talk a little bit more about, the maybe automating, because I'm finding that more and more now with technology. Sorry, with technology that we're having to do a little bit more of that. So I'm gonna just take care of her, and I'll let you take run with that one.
Well, thank you, everyone. And I did want to remind everybody, Cece does have 5 kids, so I don't know how she actually did that while that challenge right there. But speaking of, like she wanted to switch into the automation, we can automate in several different ways. Like how Cece was just showing us her list. That is automation too, believe it or not, because she knows what's the most important, what she really has to get done that day. And that is really huge because I think it might be part of the eliminate, but also part of the automate. When you get invited all the time, anyway, I know I do, go to these different classes, these different workshops, listen to these different podcasts, listen to these different radio shows, watch these TV shows, watch these YouTube shorts, whatever it is. I mean, you can get pulled in so many ways, and that's part of the eliminating as well as even automating. If there really is one that you know right now, you need to participate in, that's fine. Put it on your calendar, whether you're doing it on the paper like Cece does. I do it in a CRM called Goldmine. And if I don't do that, I can easily forget, because a lot of times you think you're going to remember, oh, today at 4 o'clock, I'm going to, I really want to participate in that show. Well, if you're like me and I didn't write it down, before I know it, it's 4:30 and I look at my calendar again or something and it's like, oops, oh, that's too bad. But I think with these automations too, the real key is to be able to put it in a way where you can follow up, because I think that's one of the number one challenges most of us have. You can meet all these people because we really do, get drilled in to our minds that we have got to meet people. We have to network. We have to, get out there and be out there consistently and frequently. And even though I agree to a certain extent, but again, is it the right group for you? Is it the right type of meeting for you? Are they the right type of people that you can work with, that you can, we always call it collaborate, that you can connect with and do different things together to make your life easier? Because if you're just going just to go, because I was guilty of that when I first started my business 20 years ago, my mentor told me, Joe, you have got to get out there and network with the people here in Tampa because you don't have a travel budget anymore. Before that, I was flying everywhere and meeting people. He says, you just got to do that. So, Cece, I was actually going to 3 to 5 networking meetings a day. And then before I knew it, I was invited because they would tell you, oh, you'd be perfect for this committee. And so you join that committee. Then they say, oh, you'd be perfect on our board. Would you join our board of directors? And my ego was getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, oh, they want me. Well, many times I found they were really just, unpaid labor that I would get to do all these cool things. And, they didn't have to pay me because I was a volunteer. And I'm not knocking volunteerism, but I wound up having 12 volunteer positions when I started my business. And on one side, that is way too many. I'm just telling you that now. My assistant used to say to me, all I do is get you ready for your next volunteer position. But on the other side, it was really good to get to know a lot of people. I mean, I knew a lot of people around the globe, but I didn't know many people right here in our backyard. So I really don't know the people that are listening, if your goal is to get to know the people locally or your people globally. Either way, though, just be mindful of when you're going to these online meetings, real in-person meetings. Is this really something that's going to be beneficial for you? Are they the right type of people? And I'm not going to kid you. Many times you have to go 2 or 3 times because there's different people either that run that meeting or facilitate it, and one might resonate with you and another might not. So I'm not saying just go once, and if you didn't care for it, but you thought there's a possibility that it might be the right show for or contacts for you, consider going back again or going online again and watching it. But we just have to be careful and mindful that we don't wind up doing so many, in this case, volunteering so much. And one day I woke up and realized nobody's volunteering to help me. And, not that it wasn't for me, it was just more a realization that here I am doing all this for everybody, but I'm not really, again, focusing on what I need to do best, which is meeting the people and doing work in my business. So just beware of that, because that can happen too before you know it, get out of hand. And with the automation,
I like what you're saying about that. I think we have to do that, on a regular basis. Like we have to have a meeting with ourselves, right?
yes,
And really sit down and say, okay, what's working for me and what isn't working for me?
yes,
Because, do we live to work or work to live?
yes,
And so we have to kind of sort that out. And I remember years ago, I was working for somebody getting a paycheck, and something was happening, with my pay or whatever. And I said, hey, I'm working here for the money. I'm not working here for fun. This is not, I can go and do something else. And that's how I think we need to treat our businesses. We need to treat it as like, it's good to love what you do, because I love what I do and I put a lot of hours and a lot of work into it. I totally love what I do, but I have to stop for a minute and say to myself, am I still able to live my life? So we have to have a meeting with ourselves and say, is this working for me? If it's not working for me, what do I need to do to fix that? What can I change? What changes can I make? How can I eliminate? Can I do something automatic? Do I need to hire somebody? What do I need to do to be able to maybe keep doing what I'm doing, but move forward in a better way? So I think we should ask ourselves that, maybe on every couple months, at least every quarter of the year, to see what worked for us and what didn't, and how can we make the change we need to make. So,
I
yeah.
agree. Do you want to take a minute to show the listeners some more information from one of our sponsors,
Oh,
and
good idea. So we will be
then
right
we'll come
back.
back and talk more about this.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for reminding me. I get so into what we're doing. I'm having so much fun. So, of course, you guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the home of the new streaming network, Going Solo and Going Bold. We want to thank you guys for listening to Link to Expert Business Showcase. I am Cece Shatz. I have my good friend Joanne Weiland with me. We're going to be right back. So just hang tight. Welcome back to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast. We are on the new streaming network. My dog is being really naughty today. Newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Bold and Going Solo. You're listening to Link to Expert Business Showcase. And we're talking about today, Joanne Weiland and I are talking about eliminating, automating, and delegating to expose your expertise. So we're going to talk a little bit more about automating and delegating now. First part of the show, we talked about eliminating, kind of reorganizing yourself, thinking about what you need to do to really kind of evaluate what's working for you, what isn't working for you. So let's talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think we ended too, right before the break, on do what you love and love what you do. And I think that is so important. Like Cece said too, she loves what she does. I do. People always tell me all the time, you work all the time. I don't think I do, because I love what I do, so I never feel like I'm working. So I really do think that's another topic for another show. But if you find something on that list that you really love, that we were talking about in the beginning of the show, see how you can do more of that and make money doing that. Because a lot of times, the money will follow if you're doing what you love, and people know when you're excited about what you're doing, instead of just like, oh, here I got to do this again. So I think that is really huge. And with the automating part, like Cece showed us her list, I think it's brilliant when you can simplify it. With me, just because I talk to so many people a day, I choose to have a CRM, a client relationship management package. I know I was on a call recently, and many people don't use a CRM. Myself, I do, just because it keeps me straight of who I talk to, when I talk to them, what we talked about, what content they send me, what I sent them. It just keeps everything in one place. Like, just using Cece as an example, when she's in my Goldmine database, it keeps track of everything we've ever communicated about, as well as even when I have phone calls with her, I make notes of what we talked about, and then I can also quickly click on to follow up, and the date I need to follow up and what I need to do, and then that's on my calendar, and I don't have to remember, because a lot of times we think we're going to remember, but we really don't always remember most of the stuff that we think we're supposed to remember, and especially when we are busy and we have a lot of things going on. So I just recommend that you have some kind of system to automate this business of yours, because of the fact that otherwise things are just going to keep falling through the cracks. So now I'd like to go into the delegate. I think a lot of times we really think us as a business owner has to do everything, and it has to be perfect, and it has to be done with specific things in mind. Well, I find if you can take the time to find the people that you can delegate different tasks to and explain to them. And you can even have things like a checklist. My virtual assistant and I, Cindy Patika, we've been together for 8 or 9 years, and we have different ways of doing things, but we talk about it, we figure it out, we come up with a plan, and then what we even have is a checklist afterwards, so we can see she did her part, I did my part, it's on time. However you want to do that, we do that with a simple spreadsheet. And you don't have to do that. There's so many other ways to automate. There's to keep in touch with each other and delegate to others, because you will again go through that list that you wrote for Monday through Friday of what you do and what could somebody else do as good or better than you. And the other part of it, when you're thinking that, I feel like you should also go back to what we just talked about a couple minutes ago, what you love. So if it's what you love, you keep that for yourself. You excel at that. You shine there. So, but a lot of times it's stuff on my list that I really don't want to do, and I don't really think is fun, and it doesn't. But you'd be surprised. Again, in my case with Cindy, she loves to do the stuff I don't like to do. And she doesn't want to do the stuff I do, like, cold call. And I love cold calling as an example. And most people do hate it. But, so why would I want to try to delegate that to somebody that is something I love, that I'm good at? I can connect with people. So I really think, again, when we're looking at that list, Monday through Friday, and if you want to do it for 2 weeks, because it might differ for different weeks, but again, not just eliminating that you don't want to do and not just automate everything, but some things really do need to be done by a person. And you really want to delegate that to somebody that loves doing that. And you'll be so surprised how it gets done and it gets done correctly because you can evaluate it. And I'm not saying the first time somebody you delegate to is going to understand it. Like Cindy gets in my head and I feel like she thinks like me before I even think like me. So, but that is again because we've been working together for years. And I have other teammates that we've been working together for years and they do the same. So it's not instant, but bear with them because they're learning too, because they can't get in your head and really know what you mean. Maybe, show them what you've been doing, show them how you'd like it to change. So you do have to spend some time with them when you're going to delegate to them, but don't be afraid to, because I really think you'll be so surprised. You'll have more time to do what Cece was talking about earlier, doing what you love and having fun too, because we are here to enjoy life too, not just to work.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because I think that you can, and and I feel it to myself, but also my business is built on that basically, because I started my own show and then I realized nobody was marketing me. So I started having to market myself. And then I realized, well, shoot, other people are probably experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing. So now this is kind of what we're doing here on the New Streaming Network. We're actually a distribution hub for wonderful shows that are out there, whether they be TV, podcasts, or radio shows. And so we started, I started doing that. So sharing these other shows with other platforms that needed the content, this kind of thing. Seeing that what's happening is that those individuals that do, let's say an example, they do the TV podcast shows, right? And we put them up on the radio, our radio station, and I have other streaming radio stations that we put them up on. But I started doing that. I realized, that helped them to be able to focus on what they did. And the majority of the individuals that have shows, they usually have a business of their own they're trying to focus on and things like that. Well, just to share with you our experience of doing this, I do pretty much the artwork. We do all of the, we get it all on. It's like live streaming, whether it be actual live or if it's streaming live. And then we share it with all of the TV station, podcast stations, the radio stations. We do all of that distribution. They don't have to do anything. They just have to come on, be on the show, tell me what the topic is, and I pretty much do everything for them. But the reality is it allows them to focus on their business. It allows them to get the guests they need to get, things like that. If they need guests, I can help them with guests. It's like things like that. But it allows them to continue to go with that. And so what I'm finding now is like a lot of our coaches are now getting, because of the broadcasting, they're getting more clients. They're able to focus on their coaching businesses that they're doing. They're actually being able to bring more money in that way. I have another gentleman who's written a few books. Now he's being entertained by a very large publisher for his next book. If that happens, he's going to be making some really great money. And that's from the exposure that he's had here on the station. So it's the exposure that gets them really where they need to go, but not all of the work that's involved. So they're delegating all of that and they're giving it to us to do. So they're kind of automating it and they're delegating it to us to be able to do it. And that's kind of what our business has, has developed into. And so, with that, on this token of my business having to do the type of work that needs to be done, then I have to also think about those kind of things as I'm putting all that into play. But that gives you a pure example of how successful that can be, sharing and giving someone else the work that you don't necessarily want to do, so that you can focus on what you do, number one, want to do, and what you can make money at doing. And that's what business is all about. Business is about creating, funding for you so that you can do the things that you truly love to do and help your family, take care of your family, and all of that along the way. And we miss that sometimes along the way. We end up finding that our business becomes a chain and ball, and around our ankle, and and that's not what it really should be. Yeah.
Exactly. And I could say almost ditto, but different, meaning that is why I created Link to Expert back in 2010, because I knew what we're talking about, and I knew so many people were going through a lot of the challenges we talked about. And so, well, we created a way for you to eliminate a lot of the stuff that you didn't need to do. Maybe create your own website, just as an example. And so many people I talk to, they spend $10,000 and it takes 6 to 9 months to build it. Well, ours is already built for you. You can actually move in a 40-page website in a day or less. And so we recommend that you consider that. And then with the automation, everything is automated. All you have to do is add your content. You don't have to create the actual base of it. It's basically like a template. It is a template, and you put in all the information about you as to showcase your expertise. And then we actually automated even the whole process, because I really do feel like most people, they meet these people, but they never follow up. So with ours, you also put in your database, your CRM, your contacts, and then every time you upload a new podcast, a new TV show, a new blog, a new article, that you have a new book, you can even sell all your products and services on LinktoEXPERT. An email blast automatically gets generated and sent it to all your people. You don't have to do anything. You just upload the information in 5 minutes and all of your people receive it. And then the other magical part about it is that twice a month we send out a newsletter. So whoever of our members has something new that happened those last 2 weeks, we send it to everybody's contact in a newsletter. We also do this with social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. For example, on Twitter, we have 22,000 people, so you automatically get sent to 22,000 people on Twitter, which is X now, excuse me, and LinkedIn, to another 10,000 people, thousands on Facebook. So we do a lot of the automated part for you, and we even automated so we don't have to do it. I don't have to touch that email blast or newsletter myself, and it automatically gets sent, because again, I delegated that to programmers and to ask them to please figure out how to do these things. So I really do believe in this eliminate, automate, and delegate. And a big part of it is for you to be able to follow up with the people you meet. So when you meet them, you take a minute and add their name and email to your contact information and LinktoEXPERT, and or you can send them a link if you want them to opt in. Either way, and they can opt out at any time. But this is a really incredible way for you to stay in contact with the people you want to, because many times we mean to, but we don't. But if they see you every 2 weeks that you have a new article or you were on a new interview, they're like, man, that Cece's really out there moving and shaking. Let me, look at this more, because they actually say you have to be seen 37 times before somebody thinks you're credible. So this is a quicker, easier way for you to do that, as well as get in front of people that you never even met that might be the right contacts. Because in our database, we do have executives, entrepreneurs, event professionals, experts, and the media, because we also continually
want to interrupt just a minute on that, because I'm actually in LinktoEXPERT. So I wanted to share with the audience, I brought it up myself so that I could look at it. But I did a blog recently about the hurricane, right? Which is just maybe a week ago.
Yes.
And it was about a week ago. And I have 191 views on my blog. Now, I did an event, right? I did an event that I posted. I had 403 people look at my information on the thing. I've had 422 people look at another blog that I did. 422 people. I had on another blog that I did about the truth behind facial expressions. 519 people looked at that one. Now, I want you to sit down when I tell you about this one. This one, we put in some information about one of the shows that we did. 2,844 people actually physically opened it up and looked at that. You don't get that anywhere. You don't get it anywhere. Another one is 610, 533. I mean, where do you get these? 403. You don't get them anywhere. So that's why I'm saying that, I've really struggled with having the time to do a lot of like blogging and like I would put them on the blogs and I put them on all these different places and I would do all this stuff and my newsletters and all. I had a lot of trouble doing all of that stuff. So I started using Link2Expert, and it's really automated all of that for me to be able to do that. And I don't think the people that do business with me, all of our hosts and guests and all that, I don't think they realize that part of the exposure that we give them. And that isn't even the press releases that we do from Link2Expert. Mm-hmm. So that's just a tiny little one blog that we did and a little announcement about an event, and 2,000 hits on that. I mean, so, and that's not, I do have it other places automatically going to some other places too, but Link2Expert is truly remarkable. And so, and I think it's also economical. I think if you look at the overall cost of it, if you want to talk to Joanne about that, I never let money, when it comes to something you truly want to do, never let money get in your way, because there's always a way around it, a work around it. A friend of mine used to always say. So, if you truly want to get on Link2Expert, talk to her about the finance part of it, the economical part of it, and I'm sure she can make it happen. Whatever you need, break it up into segments or whatever it is that you need. But it's definitely worth doing. We're gonna have to close the show because we're running out of time, but I wanted to share that personal experience with you because I didn't believe it myself, and then she gave me opportunity to check it out, and I did that, and I'm still on it. So I've been on it for, gosh, I don't know how long now, and so I do love it. So you guys need to check it out for yourself. So it's LinktoEXPERT.com. So make sure they're the ones that are sponsoring this show here today. If you want to reach Joanne, you just go to Joanne Weiland. That's JOANNE Weiland, WEILLAND. .linktoexpert.com. You can check her out there. You can check me out, Cece Shatz, at LinktoEXPERT.com. And, don't hesitate getting a hold of us and talking to us, because we certainly want to be able to, share all that information with you. So again, go to LinktoEXPERT.com and you can find all the information there. If you want to reach me, I'm on GoingSoloNetwork.com. That's my personal website. And then, of course, my email is goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. And you want to share your email, Joanne, with the audience?
Sure. The easy one is info, INFO, at LINK2TO expert, EXPERT.com. And we welcome your phone calls too at 727-791-7338. That's 727-791-7338.
Well, you guys, we want to thank you so much for joining us here today on the Link2Expert Business Showcase. We've really had a great time sharing with you all, and we hope that you enjoyed the show here today. We hope that it was informative, help you with your business. We so love you, and we want to thank you so much for joining us each and every time. We're a bi-weekly show now. We have the Link2Expert Business Showcase. We also have the Good Reads. So anyone that's an author that would love to be able to have the exposure, we would love to share with our audience your wonderful books and information, because I know our audience loves it. And we want to thank you so much for being with us each and every time. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are a TV, podcast, and a radio station right there on newsstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo and Going Bold. I am Cece Shatz. I have my good friend Joanne Weiland here with me, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us.